Oh, so we are live. Uh, Hello, everyone. Hi, Anatoly.
Hey,
Hey,
hey, great to be here.
yeah, excited to be here as well, and to learn more about the rise of Solana ecosystem. I think we first met in 2018 in your office, and it's been like quite a few years since then. I mean, like in crypto time, right? And I think there have been a lot
Yeah,
of changes in the Solana ecosystem, and it's exciting to see how you guys grow the technical, the ecosystem, and everything. So I think just in case the audience isn't aware of who we are, probably I will start by introducing myself first. My name is Loi Liu. I'm CEO and co-founder of Kyber. We have been building various like liquidity protocols on Ethereum, and recently we also like partnered with a team to build and launch Mercurial on Solana. So yeah, I mean, super excited to learn more about Solana and the potential, the future plan. Anatoly, do you mind give a brief intro about yourself and what is it that you guys are building at Solana?
sure. So I'm Anatoly, really an engineer by heart and by trade, but I'm a co-founder, CEO of Solana Labs, and we built the Solana protocol, and it's been live for almost a year and a half now. So we're pretty excited about all the new folks that are coming into the ecosystem and building with us, like you.
Exciting. So what are the specific features that Solana can solve, but other L1 or layer one existing solution cannot do?
So we kind of had this vision way back when. I mean, at the time when you kind of came by our office,
Right.
where I thought that the most interesting thing about blockchain was the censorship resistant piece. This idea that you can have a system where it guarantees that everybody in the world has global access to this information. And I thought that was really critical for price discovery, markets, kind of like, imagine if we could disrupt New York Stock Exchange and all of these monopolies that have effectively control over how this stuff is done. So Solana was built and designed really from the ground up just for that use case. But I'm an operating systems engineer by trade. It is by definition, I'm never going to build something use case specific. It is a general purpose OS, but one that can run something like a central limit order book. So that's really what we're going for, and that led us down a totally different architecture path than I would say everybody else in the space. One of the core innovations is this idea of using a verifiable delay function as a source of time before consensus. I don't think anyone else has been doing that yet.
Got it. Okay. So I think people often ask about the trade-off between different layer one protocol, right? Like for example, if Solana can achieve very low latency for the layer one, what is it that the trade-off that you think Solana makes but the others don't,
So
and
so
how
the key
significant that is? Yeah.
Yeah, so the key trade-off is, and something very different from Ethereum too, and their design principles, is that Solana is focusing on the censorship-resistant piece, where in the way that we frame it, it is the minimum set of nodes that add up to 33%. It's Nakamoto coefficient. I don't know if you ever heard that term, but if you think of these decentralized network, and you think of it from a classical Byzantine fault tolerance perspective, what is the minimum set of validators that need to be corrupted or colluding for you to break these properties of censorship resistance? And that's usually 33%. So we're focused on maximizing that set, and Ethereum 2 is not. And I don't think any other competitor is really focused on that either, because to maximize that set, each one of these nodes has to process messages from every one of those other nodes at the minimum. It is a quadratic problem, and that just requires more hardware, more throughput, more bandwidth, more CPU. And that means that the hardware requirements for these systems just go up. So this is something quite different than what the goal for something like ETH2, where what they're focusing on is what is the cheapest, smallest, honest minority, not majority, but what is the cheapest, smallest number of honest minority nodes that the network can sustain to still catch somebody doing something bad on the network. So even if you have a very small Nakamoto coefficient, even if you have like 3-4 nodes that add up to 33% of the stake of the network, that because you have this very long tail of independent nodes, they're all watching each other, that there's a very extremely high probability that an honest minority will catch any fraud. And that system is designed for, I think, kind of a different ethos, a different use case, right? One that is focusing on maximizing this distribution piece or the validation side. What we're focusing on is how do we like make sure that if we build a global price discovery engine, the NASDAQ, the replacement for an IZ, that the likelihood of the system falling over or being corrupted is so infinitesimally small that everybody can start using it for trading, for derivatives, for options, and have this guarantee that no one's going to mess with this. Because catching those failures afterwards is already too late, right? Like all my trades blew up, I got liquidated, like the world.
Right, exactly.
Me as a business, I'm like kind of destroyed, right? Like that part is something that we're focusing on, like 100%. And I think what's interesting is I think the technology and the problems are so hard that it's just basically this idea is Pareto efficient. That if you optimize for what we're doing, the Nakamoto coefficient, price discovery, guaranteeing this flow of information in real time, you basically can't do what Ethereum 2 does and vice versa.
Got it. Can you give some sort of info on, for example, currently what's the requirement to be part of the, say, validator in Solana network, and how many node validators are there and things like that?
So there's I think around 750 voting validators in mainnet, and I think close to 450 RPC nodes. So just nodes serving data. And both matter. What's interesting about the RPC nodes is that somebody needs to have a viable business to want to run the system. They're not getting any rewards. So they're actually, like you guys, like you're starting a company. It's a
Hello?
cross a censorship problem, right?
Right. It's very well timing. Right.
So what's interesting about what we're doing is that there's no sharding.
Right.
The system with 1,100 machines, the blocks and the trades and basically all the information in this thing is propagated simultaneously to all the nodes at the same time. So we kind of have this guarantee that, like me as a hobbyist, when I was working at Qualcomm, I was trading on Interactive Brokers, and the data feed I was getting was a few seconds behind Jump Trading and GTS and all the big boys, and those few seconds would break my models, right? I'm back testing, I'm doing all this really cool stuff, and to figure out that there's an edge somewhere and actually run it, and I'm like, oh, never get the trades that I want. So we designed Solana to make sure that if you go do the work and set up a node, just spend the $5,000 on a piece of hardware, right? 32 gigs of RAM. It's not it's expensive, right? Not everybody needs to do it. But if you do it, you have the exact same level playing field as the best market makers in the world. That nobody can get ahead of you, right? Nobody can like queue jump front run. Like you have 2% of the stake, you have 2% of the blocks. That you can literally have that same guarantee as everyone else, and that kind of fairness is just something that I really care about. That's my core
Interesting.
thing.
Interesting. I think obviously there are a lot of technical question on how you can achieve that, but I don't think we should go into that deep level of technical. So given that you have observed the growth of other chains, right? Ethereum and BSC and Polygon, they are all variants of Ethereum. Are there any features on Ethereum or other layer one that you wish Solana had prepare into the design? Hello.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yep.
I want. Is it me or is it you? I don't. Hard to tell.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but did you get the
Okay.
question?
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
speaking of like Ethereum features, I think EVM is a pretty interesting byte system. There's actually a project that just launched called Neon, which is a EVM implementation as a Solana program. So it runs as a smart contract on Solana and interprets EVM bytecode and cranks through the Ethereum transactions just like you would. So that would kind of think of Java on Microsoft Windows, right? Somebody ported the JVM, even though it was built by Sun, a competitor to Windows, but it enabled all these new applications to run on Windows. But still, it's all in the same machine. It's all in a trustless environment. So there isn't this bridge or any kind of like weird hoops that you need to jump through. It really does kind of speak to this idea that Solana is an operating system because I'm an operating systems engineer. That's kind of all I know how to build. So this is how I designed it.
Right.
So taking a virtual machine like EVM or one like Python or JavaScript, you can retarget it to this new thing. So I'm interested to see what people come up with because it's kind of like adding a scripting environment to to those old school Linux boxes. The first time people just got Linux to boot, then somebody built Bash, right? Somebody built like a higher level interface, but that still didn't stop people building the native libraries, which are high performance. And you can literally tell the difference between a transfer in a Solana program, which is about 200 BPF instructions, and one interpreted by the EVM, which I think gets to like 50,000. So scripting virtual machine just does a bit more work. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, some of the other things that I think have really matured on Ethereum is like Etherscan and the rich visualization of financial asset transfer through it. I think that's been just amazing, like the kind of work that folks have done there. And there's some of the stuff happening already by teams in Solana. I'm hoping that the environment that we've created is one that kind of encourages more of like these teams to have their own product vision, like SoulScan, and get users, raise funding, like figure out what is it that they're building that ultimately has like a business model versus the foundation or us building a product for free, right? And then like giving it out. I feel like when you do that, you often miss the blood, sweat, and tears that having a startup environment that drives people excellence,
Right. Obviously, it's very hard, like taking by yourself. And I think Ethereum, becomes to where it is today is because they have a lot of community members, a lot of ecosystem players that build different stuff to complete the ecosystem, right? So we you already mentioned a few names like Etherscan, and all the node. And I think the community is still active and vibrant. So speaking of Solana, what is the plan for you like, to actually incentivize or encourage people to build more stuff for the Solana ecosystem?
I mean, we have a really healthy grants program. So there's a ton of folks that have proposals that jump in and get a grant. And we often see those like early grant recipients. These are not super large grants, but it's enough to get somebody inspired and encouraged to go like build. We see a lot of them to go into hackathons, and then that's an opportunity for somebody to take an idea and in those 4 weeks build an MVP. And the last hackathon had 13,000 registrations, 400 teams actually submitted a project. I think it's over 50 that have raised funding already. So that like number of actual teams that have had enough conviction to quit their jobs and go do this full time and like go like decide, okay, we're gonna go build a company. That is the most important metric that I look at. And from my perspective, I think if the entry point for you to do this, to start this company and kind of start building is an Etherscan equivalent or a Metamask, like a wallet. It doesn't really matter in these early days. If this is what you're passionate about and you think that you have something unique to offer, just go do it. Because as the space matures, right, we're going to go from these very small numbers of people that actually self-custody keys and do anything in DeFi. I don't know. What is your guys' estimate of how many people in the world right now self-custody keys? Maybe 10 million, right?
Yeah,
like
I guess around that range. Yeah.
Yeah. Imagine that going to 100 million and then a billion, right? This is like 10 million is basically internet 1995, right? Like, and we got to start. Like, if you're imagining what are the businesses that are going to be successful when there's 100 million people with self-custody keys that can just go do DeFi, go use all these applications, like go start now, right?
Right.
And it doesn't matter what your entry point is, right? You just kind of take that and go for it. Take that energy and just really go for it.
I think obviously, it's going to take a lot of like conviction and energy and dedication, right, to start, a new project. But let's talk about the barrier of entry, though. I think, at the moment, it's much easier for people to, start a project, hire other developer who is, well versed in Solidity and building a dApp on Ethereum or Polygon or Binance Smart Chain, right? For Solana, though, like people really like have to find someone who, understand the new architecture, who will be able to code in Rust and things like that. Do you think that is a very high, barrier of entry for people to start new project on Solana? And what is it that you are doing to really like, help ease that process?
Maybe it's kind of a double-edged sword. So what's been interesting is that like, experienced C, C++, Java developers have no problems picking up Rust basically over a weekend. But those folks tend to not want to go quit their job and go do something crazy, right? They're working at like some established firm and they're like, they're not as like entrepreneurial usually because they have these kind of big jobs. Right. So, but the ones that we've been able to kind of dislodge are like, I think, higher quality because they have that deep engineering background. They come with like 5-10 years experience, but they've also tend to come from like Chicago trade, finance, right? They've worked in an options or derivatives startup in Chicago or a market maker or, like Two Sigma or whatever. And that kind of like profile of folks is really exciting to see come into the space. And they wouldn't even want to build in Solidity because the things that they're thinking about just require more throughput, more performance. You just can't build a central limit order book in Solidity, right? On any platform. Even the one running on Solana, that central limiter book would be not something that could handle that level of like kind of market making that you need to actually maintain health books and high liquidity.
Okay, so let's deep dive on that topic, right? Like, obviously, Solana wanted to target and support all the applications that require low latency and things like that, right? And you just mentioned that you are not. I think it's not suitable for like professional market makers and things like that yet. So what are the applications that you think are the good fit for Solana at the moment?
So I think like Serum has proven that it's definitely suitable for professional market makers, because we use Rust, because we use this low latency language, which is harder, right? It's harder for people to learn it, but the benefit that we got was this very efficient low latency code. But that advantage means that it's harder for people to learn. Maybe a bunch of Solidity devs can't take what they know from Ethereum and copy it over and kind of kickstart a project. Which, like, it's interesting that we had an opportunity to like grow organically with a new set of developers, right? Like the new set of people that entering the space is growing the market for everyone. That to me is pretty exciting. The challenge though is, as the space matures, is there going to be like some cap, right, on the developer ecosystem? Like, is that going to be exhausted pretty quickly? We'll see. Like that's kind of an open question. But like I mentioned earlier, there is effectively a EVM implementation called Neon, that's just basically became functional on testnet. So that's pretty exciting.
Got it. What is your thought on AMM though? Like, do you think that does AMM like Uniswap, or recently we also launched our own variant version of AMM, we call it Dynamic Market Maker, and I think Mercuro is launching AMM on Solana as well. Do you think latency matters for protocols that use AMM?
100%. So what I actually wrote the AMM that like Serum launched. That was my baby. I like cranked it out in about a week because we didn't have an AMM implementation, and I thought AMMs are really clever. So when that swap, that was running alongside the order books was this Anatoly V0, at least. a bunch of really smart people took it over after that. I think honestly that if you have a low latency system, you will be able to build much more interesting constant function market maker models, and remove impermanent loss, manage it effectively, right? It's a combination. You look at something like Uniswap v3, you need an active market maker to constantly shuffle those positions. If gas costs are higher, if the throughput is low, you basically can't do it, right? Like it becomes prohibitive for you to manage that. If you have a low latency, high throughput system, it's possible that an AMM could even start approaching essential a club in terms of slippage, and potentially in fewer transactions. Maybe that matters. Maybe that latency does actually start to improve on some portions of that curve, right? There's a lot of experiments there to try.
Got it. Interesting. Let's talk about the user experience though. I think we have been talking a lot about the developer side, the barrier of entry for them. From the user perspective, I think moving from Ethereum or other chain to Solana, I think it's a totally different experience, right? I think they have to use the new wallet. They have to get used to new concept there's no gas there, I think, and there's no ether scan there. So, what do you think about that? And do you think like there are going to be like new initiatives that are going to make it easier for people?
So on the wallet side, it's interesting that a lot of the folks coming from Ethereum find it a bit like kind of like jarring using Phantom and like unfamiliar. With new users, it's
Hello.
me if
Right.
it's I think it might be me. Let me for 1 second switch my wireless hotspot. Maybe.
I think it should be fine.
Okay. How about this?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yep. I think it's much better now.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Okay. So the user experience for people used to Ethereum is different, and it's quite jarring. What is definitely lacking is the Explorer and the showing people a rich experience of how their tokens are moving. If you look at Phantom today, you can basically set up a wallet. I think it looks better than Metamask personally. I think the experience is better, and there's like one click to fund it with whatever coins you want from a FTX Bay. So you can. There's actually a fiat ramp integrated into the wallet. I don't even know if MetaMask has that yet, but those kinds of like user experiences I think are pretty great. The hard part is for folks that are MetaMask users that just want the same experience on a new chain. And like getting them to switch, install a new wallet, that's always like a friction for those folks. And we'll see how that plays out. Are we going to see growth in Ethereum or Ethereum-based wallets? If so, right, Neon can provide that experience and provide that interface. Neon actually does interface with MetaMask pretty well. If not, then the kind of UX improvements that you see in Phantom might actually start gaining users faster. So we'll see.
Got it. Now that you brought up FTX, I think there's an interesting question that BSC got adopted quite fast and quite well due to Binance support, right? And I think we have only 1 minute left, but can you give a short answer on the role of FTX on the growth of Solana?
So we're really friendly with that team. Like we love them to death. They're the folks that kind of incubated Serum and kind of kickstarted the DeFi ecosystem. I don't know how Binance Smart Chain and I would imagine Binance Smart Chain and Binance are kind of one organization. We're two separate orgs, two different visions, but we're like really aligned because ultimately, like if you listen to Sam, he's a true believer in decentralization, and he wants to see a chain that can get to 1 billion users. So we're doing whatever it takes to make that happen.
Awesome. Yeah, I think we are running out of time. So I think it's great to have you, to share a lot of info and insight about Solana. And can you share quickly, what are the link or the venues that people can find more information about Solana?
Solana.com has everything, or follow Solana on Twitter. That's got all the hot updates. So
awesome.
Pretty easy to find us. If you're a dev, jump into our Discord, solana.com/discord. So we have like 24/7 support, I think, at this point.
Right, that's a lot. Cool, awesome. Thanks a lot, Anatoly, and thanks a lot, SCP 10X, for organizing this. Yep.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.